All right, there's about 1 more minute until the meeting starts.
I hereby call the 12 June meeting of the Des Moines City Council Environment Committee to order. Our first item of business is approval of our last meeting minutes, which was March the 13th. Do I have a motion? Okay. Do I have a second? Oh. Is that a question or a?
No,
It's a motion.
Oh, okay,
It's a
good.
motion and a
Very good.
second.
Okay, then.
We're very efficient.
What's that?
We're very efficient.
I love it. I just like sound because seeing is more challenging. Thank you. It looks like the minutes are approved. We are going to be going a bit out of order and apparently starting with item 3, Water Resource Inventory Area 9, Wyra. Correct? Take it away, City of Des Moines.
Thank you, Chair. Tyler Beakley, Surface Water Manager. This item is also on consent tonight, approving the ILA with Wyra 9. It's a great relationship for salmon recovery and also supporting our Des Moines Creek Estuary project. But I'm going to pass it over to Matt Goring from King County, and I'll let him introduce the topic and himself.
All right, members of council, mayor, thanks for having me here today. I actually been spending quite a bit of time here. I've been supporting Stormfest the last couple of days, and kudos to your staff and everyone involved in that, because I think it was a tremendous success again this year. So exciting to see that, and excited to be here again today. I think this is my third time in 3 years now with the plan update, then talking about the Des Moines Creek project, and here again with the ILA. So happy to be here. Again, just a quick overview of what I'll be running through, provide a little background context for salmon recovery, quick overview of kind of what we're doing with the habitat plan, what is this ILA we're talking about, and then some of our overview of our funding and accomplishments, and then just a quick snapshot looking forward. So this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone here. You know, salmon decline, you know, it's been a long time coming. We've been working on this. Really, we got jump started with the listing of Chinook salmon in 1999. That kind of initiated this approach called the Shared Strategy Collective. This was a multi-level effort across different levels of government, working collaboratively, recognizing that, hey, if we're going to do salmon recovery right, it's going to have to be embedded in our local government structure. We're going to need support and implementation by the locals. So this led to locally approved salmon recovery plans. And so in this watershed, as well as RIA 8, which is the Lake Washington, that was kicked off in 2001 with the first interlocal agreements. And then that led to the development of the original salmon habitat plan in 2005. That was followed a couple years later by the regional Puget Sound salmon recovery plan, and then most recently in 2021 when we updated the first comprehensive update of the salmon recovery plan. So in terms of our framework, like I said, really implementation is driven at the local watershed level. We're in the Green Duwamish and Central Puget Sound watershed, extends up to the Cascade Crest, north of Mount Rainier, then out through Elliott Bay, and then includes all the nearshore cities from Seattle down to Federal Way. And then we have this framework where the local is driving the implementation and prioritization. Then we have this regional framework where we're getting policy from Puget Sound Partnership and the Governor's Salmon Recovery Office, which is ultimately fed information from National Marine Fisheries Service. So here's a snapshot of that watershed I talked about, really diverse watershed. You can see the coastal jurisdictions largely consist of residential land uses. Then we've got the main Duwamish and Lower Green corridor. Those are kind of the industrial heart. It's actually, you know, always blows my mind that when you talk about the Lower Green River Valley, that's 1/8 of the state's GDP. So pretty impressive there. And then the upper watershed is mostly commercial forestry or conserved land. So salmon habitat plan, that includes the Chinook salmon status assessment. We updated best available science, that we integrated things like climate change, new research on juvenile fish use of non-natal tributaries such as smaller creeks like Des Moines Creek. We updated our habitat goals, prioritized recovery strategies, and then kind of the biggest lift was really updating this capital project list, which included over 100 projects across the watershed, and all those projects were tiered into tier 1, 2, and 3 priorities. So in terms of the ILA we're here to talk about today, this really is the guiding light for implementation and adaptive management of the salmon habitat plan. It outlines our governance structure, how we make decisions and funding recommendations in this watershed, and that's the Watershed Ecosystem Forum. Tyler represents the city of Des Moines on that. It also provides a funding mechanism for day-to-day operational costs within the watershed. I'll get a little more into the details of how that's established in the next slide or two. And then it outlines that we have to approve an annual work plan and budget. And so, as I mentioned, the first one was a 5-year in 2001. Then we've gone through 2 10-year updates, with the most recent one expiring at the end of this year. So in terms of the process we went through, we did some early coordination in the winter 2024. We've reviewed our approach with partners, including the Watershed Ecosystem Forum. Really what we heard was, hey, this is a good partnership, it's working, let's not do any major substantive changes. So what's in front of you for consideration is more small changes around the edges to improve alignment and consistency across watersheds, but nothing drastic. Then we had a comment period in the summer 2024. We held an attorney conference call where any questions that attorneys had from our partner jurisdictions could be discussed. And then the Watershed Ecosystem Forum approved it in fall 2024. And then currently we're on a roadshow to seek council ratification or signature of the ILA extension. So this is number 7 out of 17, and we have 15 of 17 currently scheduled. So at this point, we look well on track for completing that by the end of September, which was our self-imposed deadline. So in terms of what do we do in this annual work plan? So we have the watershed coordination. We coordinate both the Watershed Ecosystem Forum. We coordinate with the state in terms of Puget Sound Partnership and the Washington Salmon Coalition. One of the big things we do is we develop an annual grant round and a funding strategy for helping our partners get their priority projects across the finish line. We support monitoring and adaptive management, including an active research program. And then we also support some stewardship services. And these stewards operate throughout the watershed, working with partners to improve coordination and help advance project development. So in terms of our funding, you can see the ILA. The current funding level is about $606,000. About $16,000 of that is contributed by the city of Des Moines. That is based on cost share of, which is the relative average of the percent population assessed value and land area relative to the whole watershed. Then in terms of our annual grant round, we get about $4.2 million from the Flood Control District to support cooperative watershed management grant program. We divvy that up roughly, targeting about 65% to high priority capital projects, 15% to revegetation projects, 10% to research and monitoring, and 5% to education and outreach. And then from the state, every other year, we get about $1.1 million from Puget Sound Acquisition and Restoration Program. And then annually, we get another $300,000 from the Salmon Recovery Funding Board. So in terms of accomplishments, since its inception, there's been over $200 million leveraged across the watershed in terms of implementing projects. They've been able to set back about 3.5 miles of levee along the Green Duwamish, revegetate over 500 acres, preserved 4.5 miles of marine shorelands, including about a mile of marine shoreline armor that's been removed. So here is one of the more recent nearshore projects completed in City of Seattle, Loman Beach. You can see in the center there was a large seawall that was failing, protecting an old tennis court. The decision was made to remove that, restore, regrade the beach, and reconnect sediment delivery, all while integrating a vision for recreational use, continued recreational use on that park. So they're very happy with the outcome of that, and it is a locally cherished park. So in terms of looking forward locally and regionally, we've been working with Tyler. This was again recommended for funding, should be in front of the Flood Control District for their approval and release of funds, probably July time frame. But this is just one of the concepts which is being explored in terms of looking at restoration and improvement of this beach park. So, and then at a regional level, you've probably seen in the news, Howard Hansen Dam, there's been about $270 million has been already appropriated to providing fish passage at this facility. That would provide access to over 100 miles of habitat upstream of the dam. It had been put in the president's budget for the remaining $500 million. That has been stripped out most recently. So it's a priority of the federal delegation. Senator Murray is leading the charge on this. So we'll see what happens in the next kind of appropriation session. But certainly that has been a priority project for the watershed since its inception. This would be, if they fail to execute it this time around, this would be the second false start. So hopefully we can get that funding in the next year or two and keep the Army Corps' design build contract in place. So with that, I'll pause there and see if there's any questions.
Colleagues, questions, comments?
Thank you very much for the presentation. Sorry, I had to get back to my slide that I was looking at here. So it looks like we are but a small portion of your ILA funding, but it seems like we are also somewhere in that priority mix of having some projects. And you talked a little bit about the beach park. Are there other projects in the Des Moines area that could benefit from this partnership as well?
Yes, so there's a couple. So there was a Mazzy Creek project that was initially explored in terms of feasibility. At this point, it really wasn't feasible. So that's in there, should it ever become feasible and change in circumstances. The other one is McSorley Creek and the state park, and that one was funded through about 60% design, and then there was a decision by the county to put it on pause because it was not rising to the priority level at state parks, where we felt confident that it was going to be implemented. So they couldn't make the commitment that it was a top priority for them to move forward with at that time and dedicate the resources, so the county hit pause. So though there is a 60% design set, and if and when it becomes a priority, we're ready to support it again.
Let me make sure I understand that part. So, it would be adding to the state park, but the county is in charge of maintenance at this point in time. How does that relationship work with the county and the state?
So the county actually doesn't have any maintenance requirements or involvement there. It was a design contract, essentially. State parks didn't have the staffing to support a project manager to explore feasibility and design. So it was this agreement for state parks to basically sign off at various steps, but the county was leading kind of the overall project implementation, if you will. And the decision really came about, okay, as we get ready to move forward with a preferred alternative and get design-ready documents, is State Parks going to staff this for construction? And, you know, there's a salmon component, but there's also a big recreational component in terms of infrastructure.
Yes.
And so that's where we need the state parks to lean into it. If they want the infrastructure funding, it's gonna have to be a priority on their capital project list.
That's very helpful. So let me recap to make sure I've got it. So the county was gonna be like the PM, the project manager, and assist with the staffing in order to move forward, but they have since stepped back from that. But the state is still interested, but because of the county pulling back some resources, they're kind of left going, well, we also don't have staff. Is that kind of where we're at?
Yes, and there needs to be a prioritization at the state parks level in terms of, well, what are your priority parks that need to be retrofitted or rebuilt in terms of, and that's where it's a bit unclear on where that stands there.
But adding additional resources to that might rise up that priority list possibly?
Certainly.
Okay.
And that is a tier 1 project and would be the biggest remaining marine nearshore restoration project on the mainland off of, obviously, Vashon Island. So,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, have you taken a look at Redondo Creek? The reason I ask is, I don't see anything that we're doing with regard to it, but right now, Federal Way is constructing fish passage all the way up the hill. So, do you envision doing anything within the stretch that Des Moines?
it is not currently in the salmon habitat plan. It could be added. We have a process where every other year we can accept new projects and have them tiered and then be eligible for funding. But we do have a current research project, which I think they're basically going around and sampling these smaller tributaries across Puget Sound, because when they did sampling at McSorley Creek, they found juvenile Chinook were actually moving up into the creek and using it as habitat. And so now there's an effort to go around and sample some of these nearshore streams and find out, hey, which of these are being utilized by ESA Chinook, even though they don't spawn in there, and then maybe those become a new priority in terms of potential projects.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see here. I was just thinking as my colleagues were talking about the wonders of having 10 kingdoms within, you know what I'm talking about. It's just the wonders of having all of these different, environmental riches and 10 different agencies rather than, just point of privilege, I looked at this original graphic, the salmon recovery timeline, and I thought, how festive, and then I realized that it's like, because I first thought it was just, they're going down the falls and everything, but it's not as, anyway, it just looks happier than the actual situation it's describing is what I'm trying to get at, just as in a sense, it should be somewhat more alarming. But anyway, I'm attending a flood control district meeting next week, and they have sent out some warnings regarding their budget. Are you assured of the funding you are going to get from that? Or is it reasonably?
It's reasonably secure. They have said the 4.2 is what would be allocated this year. They do have to approve the projects, but they have never not gone with the Watershed Ecosystem Forum's recommendation. You know, as with future funding in other years.
I'm just, because we started last year thinking about a completely different, like actually the funding going up,
Yeah.
and it's definitely not going up, so I just
Yeah.
wanted to check.
Yeah, as of now, we have not heard any suggestion that that funding would be going down at this point.
Okay, and just for whatever, rhetorically, I always have little concerns about ILAs that we pay into on an ongoing basis that don't seem to apply to us, but I feel like eventually we're gonna pay into this a little bit every year, and then there's gonna be something eventually that's gonna be really meaningful, eventually, with, not just with the beach park, but something will happen with McSorley, and the Massey Creek thing will, but to me, this is an investment that I'm happy to pay, even though it's not, sometimes there don't seem to be immediate returns.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And so part of the framework is doing what's best within the watershed, regardless of jurisdictional boundaries. So there are years where, some jurisdictions get funding, and then there may be a period of 4 or 5 years where you don't get funding. But by pooling the resources, it allows us to get the biggest projects done with the best bang for the fish.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm not like Mr. Egalitarian. Eventually, I expect these things to redound to, because we do have so many, really, so much stuff.
Yeah.
But all that said, that's my way of showing my gratitude, and thank you, because it is a very long game. Colleagues, are there any other questions on this item?
No.
Thank you.
One comment, if I might just add from my perspective, is when you look at the Wyra 9 geographical boundary and you see Des Moines there and how much shoreline we take up as a city, that's our benefit right there in salmon recovery, is just the Puget Sound health and what we're gaining benefit from this regional effort that's making these waters clean, that are making these waters healthy for salmon and fit for them. So that's kind of the perspective I see too, is we might be small compared to some of these larger cities, but our shoreline benefit is huge.
Well said. Anything else, or is that it for this item?
That remains for that item.
Okay, great. Then thank you very much, sir,
Thank you.
as always.
I appreciate the time.
And with that, I guess we're moving on to CIP project updates.
Yes, we are.
Okay, very good. Take it
Hello,
away.
council members. Alex Johnson, civil engineer, capital project manager for Surface Water. Thanks for having us. So I'll pretty quickly run through these, but feel free to stop me at any time if you have questions on a particular project. 24th Avenue South Pipeline Replacement Project. We have resumed construction on that. That's a transportation project, but we do, Surface Water does have a piece of that. Construction is going on again, and we are currently slated to complete in November of this year. So we're glad to see things moving back on that one. Des Moines Memorial Drive between 208th and 212th, and the next one, 216th Place and Marine View Drive, are both in one project, and they are, we've reached substantial completion. I know everyone is glad that I'm no longer tearing up Des Moines Memorial Drive. We just have a couple punch list items on that one, and we can close out that contract, so we're really pleased with how that one went. Deep Dean Outfall. This project was always a bit of a challenge for us to try and figure out how to bid. And so we reevaluated and actually decided to make it a maintenance crew project to maintain the current solutions that we have in place there. That one is currently as an active work order with our crew and should be completed in the next few weeks.
Yep. It's a fair estimation.
And that is all we have for current construction. For planning, engineering, and right-of-way acquisition, we have the Massey Creek Pocket Estuary and Fish Project that was mentioned earlier. That one has been shelved. We have received our final deliverable from the consultant parametrics on that, and Tyler and I are getting ready to close out that project and that grant, or that project within that grant. And that the rest of those grant funds actually got transferred over to the Marine View Drive retrofit project, which is the last one on this list. That project is in preliminary design, and we are still seeking grant funds for construction for that, but we are fully funded through the design efforts, and that's sitting at about 10%. The Des Moines Creek Pocket Estuary Project is our big fish, and that's the ongoing one. We're very happy to be funded through 60%, and we've gotten pretty positive feedback on the prospects of getting the remainder of our design funded through the current grant application. And as Matt said, hopefully we'll hear something about that in July. But that one's our long-term, it's not going to be finished until at least the end of 27. Then we have 6th Place and 287th Street Pipe Project. That one we are fully funded, and we are currently at about 10% preliminary engineering, and design should be complete by the end of this calendar year.
Only thing I would like to add is on the Des Moines Creek Pocket Estuary Project, will likely be coming back to either council or committee by the whole or environment committee later this year. It's not currently on the schedule, but with a update of as the design progresses, informing the public and informing the council. So we'll look for a clear point in design where that makes sense, where there's been enough progression.
And I think in the meantime, we'll be back for those once those grants are finalized.
Once the grants are finalized.
But yeah, I would assume fall of this year will likely be at a next reportable deliverable.
Questions, comments?
What is the procedure as far as notifying the public as to what decisions have been made on these projects? Do you have a neighborhood?
Varies by project. So the bigger projects that have the greater impact, we will do these open houses, beach park events, online surveys. That's like the estuary, marina steps, those type of fishing pier, those type of projects will have a greater widespread cast. Like Des Moines Memorial Drive, we do like localized letters to residents, like within 100 feet of the project to do noticing. And then smaller projects might even be less than that as far as a radius. So again, we don't have a clear answer and a clear protocol. It's just what makes sense for that project, given will people care if it's impacting them or not.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
I guess I'll just add to that. Any project, in right-of-way that is going to be impacting residential areas, at like bare minimum, notice will go out before construction begins, no matter what the size is.
Just real quickly, just because the Deep Dean thing never seems to go away, is it ever going to come back? In other words, is this the permanent solution?
I hope not.
No, but
Yes.
it's just basically, how sometimes project management, you'll just, rather than addressing it, you'll just assign it to another category and say it's done until 2034.
No, this one, we're taking our temporary fix, which has been in place for 5+ years now and holding well, and we are going to turn that into a permanent fix. So we're shoring it up, and then we're gonna put it on an enhanced maintenance schedule, where we're gonna be actively monitoring it, because it is an active landslide area. So that's why I said, I hope not, because you never know what moving soils are gonna do to it. But at this point, the pipe is holding up well structurally. We don't think it needs to be replaced and a new outfall in place, so we're gonna keep monitoring it.
Yeah, okay, okay, I'm sorry. Let's see, moving on, a couple of things. Is there, what was I gonna ask? Is there any kind of, is this the right place? No, wait, I'll come to one other thing first. You mentioned 100 feet for notice, and you know how like on property issues, it'll be 300 feet? People will complain that it was like their house is 302 feet away from it and everything. So 100 feet seems like I can foresee situations where it would be. Is it really 100 feet? Because I can just foresee situations where we comply with the letter of the law, but not the spirit. And is there some way in your ArcGIS or whatever just to, expand it to 300 feet as opposed to 100? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, I threw 100 feet out there as an example. There is no hard and fast rule for outreach. We dictate as staff what we feel is,
Yeah.
Okay.
100 feet is a vast underestimate.
Yeah, no, I'm just really trying to find if there's some kind of, because everybody will always say, I had no idea, and
Yeah.
because
I
there
can-
are such different geometries of properties, I just, always wonder how we,
Yeah, I mean, I can use my recent, the Des Moines Memorial Drive 208 to 212 project. When we went to suspension, and then before we resumed work, I canvassed the neighborhood, and I was probably like 600 to 1,000 feet off of Des Moines Memorial Drive, knocking on doors and putting up flyers. So we were very generous with like what the area that we think is reasonably going to be impacted by any project.
okay, I believe you, that just sounds like a lot of work. I just keep hoping there's the
I get
AI
my
thing
steps in.
that just says, no, I mean, that just says, here's your walking route, and you hit, okay.
The real innovation would be to do that by drone. I could
We're
just fly
not,
numbers.
yeah, okay.
we've done more social media postings as of late too as well for construction impacts and
Yeah, I see that. You got-
closures and,
You're killing it. It's so much better than just in terms of, thank you. And this may not be but because we don't meet regularly, is there any updates on just how the sampling is going behind the engineering building, the wells and so on?
very well. Yeah, that's coming up later in the year, and I'll go in way more detail, but I'm currently just got out of a meeting this week, and we're looking at finally decommissioning some of the sampling wells. And we're gonna only have 2, if our plan gets approved by ecology, that are left, that are just a sliver above compliance. So hopefully even better news to report coming later this year.
All right, no, I'm just,
Yeah.
something in my brain said June is somehow, Lauren used to do something.
yeah.
Okay, I guess that's all I got. Is there anything else?
I think that concludes this item, yeah.
Okay, very good. Any final questions from my colleagues?
Do we need to go to item 2?
Oh, yeah, thank you. This is the advantage of having people paying attention. Thank you. Item 2, that's why I was thinking of it, operations and maintenance overview. And take it away, City of Des Moines.
Yeah, Tyler Weekly again, Surface Water Manager. This one's near and dear to my heart just because operation and maintenance is where we get to be public facing as a department, and we can show citizens, taxpayers, where their money is going when they pay their surface water utility tax that they see on their property tax bill. And I can highlight some of the things we offer in O&M, and I can highlight what our crews are doing to make sure we have safe roads, no flooding, clean waterways, clean creeks, clean Puget Sound. So it is a requirement by ecology that we do operations and maintenance. We would do it regardless, but they do mandate some of the frequencies and schedules that we stick to. So I'll jump into staffing. Currently, our maintenance crews consist of 1 lead, 1 stormwater specialist, and 4 maintenance workers. So they have a crew of 6 out there actively working in the right-of-way, inspecting and maintaining our infrastructure. Part of their team, I guess, is the equipment that goes along with them. And recently, council approved our new Vector truck that is set for delivery late this year. But I know our crew is very excited to have a new one because our other one's limping along. So inspections wise, we have a ton of public facilities, over 240, and I won't go through that list, but it covers ponds and tanks and vaults and all different types of water quality systems. And our crew has to inspect all of those annually and then maintain those if anything is red flagged from a maintenance standpoint. So in 2024, 18 of those facilities on that list received maintenance by our crew. So to me, that tells me, you know, the rest of those 243 were in compliance, meaning we have a pretty clean system and they're doing a good job of keeping everything up to date, where only 18 failed compliance. We also completed through in-house with our maintenance crews the installation of 60,000 plus bird balls in our FAA public pond. Moving on to private facilities, we do have 90 private facilities that were required to inspect by state requirements. Last year, only 9 of those failed and required maintenance, but the maintenance is put on to the private owners. So we offer inspection free of charge as a city to go on their property, inspect their facilities, and then we give them a letter notice that says, you know, your facility failed and needs to be cleaned, and then we follow up to make sure they clean it. We've never had somebody reject or refuse the cleaning. We've always had great relationship with the private owners in our city. Beginning next year, I'm hoping to launch a new campaign. I didn't put in the packet because I'm still in the works on it, but of offering it to all private facilities. So the 90 on the list are just the ones we're required to do by ecology, but there's a whole host more, probably 300 more in the city, and I'd like to offer send letters out to those private property owners saying, you know, if you want an inspection of your facility, we will come out and do that for you and let you know what needs to be maintained. We can't offer to do the maintenance, but we can offer to do the inspections for them. So trying to expand that program next year. And hopefully next year I can report on that. Yeah, happy to answer questions along the way.
Blast away.
Thanks for letting me interrupt here. Would those be more of the same categories that you have here, or are there unique other things in those 300 that are out there?
Potentially, definitely more of the same.
Yeah.
But potentially could expand the list to even some of the stuff on the list above them that aren't included.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, rain gardens or any other feature out there. There's probably 100 different categories of stormwater things, different types of facilities. So yeah.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Do they get like a nice sign that goes like, this has been inspected, or
Not necessarily, no.
clean for 2025?
Right, and just to say, the 90 on that list, they are required to do maintenance. The ones that we want to expand to, it'll be sort of a volunteer basis. Where it's not mandated by ecology, we'll inspect their system for them and say this maintenance should be done, but there's no enforcement mechanism to mandate them. So truly a benefit to them.
Right, but a gold star might incentivize people.
Correct. Yeah, I hear what you're saying now.
Yeah.
Yep. Moving on to construction inspections. This is what we do with our construction inspector who does all the development in the city and makes sure they do their stormwater assets and build them correctly. But when those assets get built, we're required to inspect them every 4 months until the construction's finished. So these are built assets. Think of like a subdivision. They're still building all the homes in it. Well, we need to inspect that infrastructure. We do that on a more frequent basis than the rest of our inspections because it's in an active construction zone. So whenever there's a subdivision active, we're out there doing those inspections. Catch basins, those are our biggest category. We're 5,000 basins publicly maintained in the city. We have to inspect and maintain those basins every other year. So we split the city in half. We do the north half one year, the next half we do the south, and then so on and so forth. Last year, 3,000, just over 3,000 were inspected. Of those, 600 needed cleanings or maintenance. So you can imagine the crew having to go out there, inspect 3,000 basins, and then take the Vector truck to 600 plus and do the cleanings. It takes a big portion of our year and a big manpower effort to do that, but they always get it done on time. And before we have to write a letter to Ecology saying we missed the deadline, they never make me write that letter. SWIP, Stormwater Pollution Prevention. This is for our city-owned maintenance yards and facilities. This is making sure we're following our own codes and making sure our own sites are following pollution prevention measures. And we do quarterly inspections at both our maintenance yard next door to City Hall and our maintenance yard up on 223rd to make sure we're not causing pollutants to run off into the basins. They're following all their best management practices. We're responding to spills correctly. And I'm happy to report every year we get better and better with those quarterly inspections and just having less and less action items to clean up. We do have what's called a structural BMP, structural best management practice, slated for 2027, and that's to get permanent cover over our storage bins. These are our sands, our gravels, our salts that are stored up there. We don't want the rainwater hitting those. So right now we have temporary covers, tarps, PVC type things over them, and it's getting us through, but we have a capital project scheduled for 2027 to get permanent cover, metal, roofing, something to that degree. Moving on to asset management and our programs, we use CityWorks and GIS to track all of our assets, both on the map. We do that public facing on GIS, so we direct the public. You want to know the infrastructure in front of your home. Even some of it we have mapped on private property now, and we continue to map private property assets as they come in. We can say, you want to know where your drains go? Here's our map. And it can show it all the way down to the Puget Sound and trace where their water from their home would run. And then the asset management CityWorks is just a great tool. You'll see the crew out there with iPads. They click the asset on the map and they have a whole list of questions about what would fail that basin, and they say, nope, that's good, that's good. Oh, sediment is too high. And it gets reported back and a work order is generated, and it just makes sure everything's efficient and you can report back to Ecology all the metrics. So we continue to use that program and take it from there. So here's an opportunity for the public is drainage concerns. We use our Fix-It form on our website as our main tool for receiving complaints, whether it's spills, water quality, flooding, any stormwater related problem. We encourage the public to go to the Fix-It form menu, and that gets to us same day, and we're able to follow up normally that week, if not sooner. CMP inspections. This is something we've been actively gearing up for the last few years, and we're finally to that point where we're ready to engage and get these inspections done, where corrugated metal pipe, CMP, is sort of an outdated material that was installed a lot in the 70s and 80s, and water and metal do not mesh together. They rust. So we have over 250 CMP pipes in the city. They are in various degrees of condition, where sometimes the bottom is completely rusted out. We're going to camera all these, and we recently trained one of our technicians to be able to assess and rank the priority of the condition assessment of these pipes. So we can say, what are the ones in the worst degree that need immediate attention to ones that maybe we can tackle 10 years. So all that to say is we're trying to get all those done by 2028, hopefully a lot sooner than that, and that will help us program in our next comp plan capital projects to replace these pipes. Pipe programs, another opportunity for the public where there's a ditch line in front of their home. If they want that filled for parking, or they want to do landscaping in front of their property, they can partner with Public Works, where we do the labor and install, they pay for the materials. It's a joint effort. As long as it's feasible, so it's not always feasible to fill a ditch just by grades or utility conflicts. We do probably 3 or 4 of those a year, where we partner with various public and fill ditches. Pipe projects, that is just smaller projects that aren't capital improvement projects. They don't raise to that level of monetary or complexity where our own crew can do them in-house. There's a handful of those we do a year. It's both cheaper to do our own projects in-house, and our crew loves to do them. They take pride in their work, and they love making sure the public has a good finished condition. They take pride in making sure the gravel's restored on the side, that the HMA goes down restored, and that it's a good product at the end of the day. And finally, ditch and pond mowing. It's not the prettiest effort they do, but they're out there on their mowers, riding along ditches, mowing down the long grass in the summers, as well as our 20-plus ponds and throughout the city is, on a bi-weekly basis, they're going out and cutting down the grass. That concludes what I have under this item, Chair.
Colleagues, questions, comments? Your enthusiasm, it always just makes my heart grow 3 sizes for this stuff. And I'm being somewhat rhetorical, but our accounting system has this project code system, and I sure hope we have an easy way to track all the effort used on those bird balls. Because I want the money back, frankly. Moving on, have you noticed any weather impact in your work? I'm just noticing like things are getting drier and so forth, and does that create any changes in your workload? I'm just because I look at these sort of passive trenches and stuff, and there's no water going through them, like because it hasn't been raining, and so.
Yeah, I do have an answer to that. Dry periods are a blessing to us because there's no flooding when it's not raining, but we are seeing an increased intensity when it does rain. So that's sort of the change we're seeing is bigger storms when the storms do occur. So we would do something called storm watch when there's more than 1.5 inches of rain projected. We kind of do all hands on deck and drive around the city and monitor these areas of concern on our list, creeks, cages, anything like that, or just areas where there's projects planned where we know there's improvements needed to make sure there's sandbags at the ready to stop flooding impacts. Also, along with the estuary, king tides seem to get more common and higher over time as well. It's anecdotal right now, but it's just what I've seen working here 10 years.
And I'm looking at like the detention. We're having more detention ponds. That seems to be a bigger component with like construction now.
Mhm.
And they're behind like little fences and so forth. Does that represent any more challenges for people, or is it you've got the iPad, I guess? Or
No, not necessarily. That's kind of routine for us to inspect those, and that is a requirement of development is to do detention, regardless of what the weather's doing year to year. We need to be prepared for the large storms.
Okay. All right. That's just again, it's all anecdotal, but I just wonder if it changes the job a little bit over time.
So, Councilmember, I could add a little bit to that too. One of the issues is the intensity of storm, and Tyler kind of mentioned that really quickly. And so, as climate change occurs, what we see is these swings, more energy in the atmosphere. So when we get rain, it comes much quicker, much faster. A lot of the systems, Des Moines is a little bit luckier because we have a lot of creeks and stuff, although that could lead to washout, right? But a lot of the systems can be designed for, in the 60s and 50s, people would think, well, it just rained here all winter, right? And it was a nice, slow, steady rain. And like in Tacoma, we had, 8-inch pipes. Well, now we've replaced that in the future with going to 10-inch pipes because they may be drier most of the year, but when it rains, it rains. It's like if you've ever been to Texas and you drive over a culvert and it's 12 feet by 12 feet and it's dry. But when it rains, you need every inch of that 12 feet. And so it's the way rain is falling is different. So the system is affected long term. And as engineers, when we look at the system, we need to take a look at what is the life cycle cost and when do we change it, when do we upsize. And that can even have effects long term with building codes. I know Seattle is changing its design storm for what size pipes and sizing all your pipes. So it has a trickle effect over time. It's slow, and you have to keep current on it. So there's a lot of work that does go into that with the change in how the weather affects our system.
It's just, I'm just seeing, you know, like such a thing, like when I moved here.
Oh, but the world is changing.
Anything else on this item from the city? Do I have any comments from colleagues?
Thank you.
Then thank you. Gratitude. I guess with that, I will entertain a motion to end this meeting.
Second.
Then we're out of here. Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.